Okay, guys. Sorry, I should have started this video a lot sooner, but I just realized that there's probably a lot of people out there that probably need to know how to work on this saw and to figure out what the problem is with their saw. So I got Husqvarna 350, and what's going on with it is that when you go to start it, it'll actually start up and it'll sit there and idle, but it won't run. It won't idle up. It'll just bog out on you. And what causes that could be a couple of different things actually, but normally, most of the time, I would say at least 90% of the time, it's either going to be bad fuel, which has been sitting for any time over 3 months period, which the particles and whatnot in gasoline will break down, and your oil concentrates, your mixes will break down. So you need to make sure you got good fuel in there. But in my case, it was actually the fuel line itself was cracked. I'm going to try and show you. This is the one I've already removed, but right here between this top piece bracket here and the main housing frame of the saw is where the hose will go bad. It's right in this little piece here. Now you probably won't be able to check it too easily, but you might be able to see if you put a flashlight in there. But this is what happens. Let's see if I can get a good picture of it here. But this is what happens to your fuel line in between there. Now if it's sitting up, you can't really tell that there's much of nothing wrong with it. But when it gets a hole or a crack in it like that, then what you're doing is allowing the fuel to not get a good draw up to the carburetor. So what I'm doing is the fuel filter on this one's actually not in bad shape, but since I already took the thing out, I'm going to go ahead and replace it with a new fuel filter. You might as well do it since you're already at this point. But inside of here, inside this crack, there's just a little hole, and you probably need yourself a good pair of needle nose pliers. I have a little teeny pair here just to help me thread it in. But just push the fuel line through that hole, and once you get it through there, you should be able to see it up in the gas tank from here. And if you can reach in there and get a hold of it, actually I'm going to need my light, but you'll see it poking through the hole there. Yeah, there we go. Get yourself a good grip on it. You should be able to pull it right on out of there. Alright, and then you're just going to pull it on down. Leave yourself a good little bit there to still work with. And once you get it down this far, once you buy the new fuel line itself, it will actually have a sharp end on it like this. It'll be cut at a nice little sharp angle for you, which actually helps you thread it in there. So you definitely don't want to remove those until you get it in. But once you get it in there, you go ahead and snip that off flat. A 90-degree cut there. Put your fuel filter in your hose. I'm not really used to working at these angles, but I figured I might as well film this for someone out there that might need some help. To save you a lot of money than taking this thing to a shop where they charge you $100 for a $4 fuel line, which you can do yourself in probably 10 minutes. So now we got the fuel filter on. I'm just going to shove that back up in the tank. Go ahead and put my fuel cap back in the tank there. Now I drained the fuel just because I thought it might make it a little easier for me. But you could actually do this without draining the fuel. You could actually just keep your saw on the side. Go ahead and pull the old line out. Put the cap back on, tilt it down, put your hose in, tilt it back up. You could do it with the fuel in it, but for my purposes, I didn't feel like fooling with all that, so I just dumped it out. Okay, and then you got to take your line, kind of pull it out the way, and you got to thread it back up through this top hole here, which is a lot easier to get it through the top hole than that bottom hole. And then you go ahead and get a hold of it again, pull it on up where you need it. Okay, there we go. Alright, and then I'm actually going to pull me out some extra line, because I'll tell you a little trick here, guys. If you go ahead and use the full length of this hose and pull it down in your tank, don't worry about a lot of that hose sitting down in your tank. All that's doing is helping you for the next time. When you got this piece of cracked off piece right here, you'll still have enough fuel line left where you can just go like this, cut that off, pull this up through it, and then you can just go again without actually having to go to the store, buy a new fuel line. So this time I didn't, because I've had this saw for so long. But I'm actually going to pull this down until I get to right about where I need it. Which should be about, yeah, right about there. So that leaves you just enough to get over to the intake port here on the saw, on the carburetor, I mean, sorry. Alright. Now, I'm going to snip this one off flush at a 90 to the hose. Okay. We're going to plug that right back up on our carburetor here. And I hope you guys can see this. I'm going to try and do this in front of the camera, just in case, because I didn't explain that at the beginning. I'd already taken this thing halfway apart before I even started the video, so let's see if I can watch myself here. Okay, so this is our hose we just put in, and right here behind the hose is the port, so you can put it back on your carburetor. Now, well, I'll tell you what, this is really hard to do at an angle while doing it on camera. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to set it back down over here, put it back on. Okay. And once you get it on there, make sure you get it on there seated pretty well. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. And then you're already hooked back up, so all you got to do is, I took the air filter off. The air filter is real easy on the saw. Just put it on an angle here, turn it, click it into place. Good to go. Now let's see, then you go ahead and replace your top cover, which is basically 3 screws. I think even on the oldest models, I don't think they have too much to them. I actually still have my chainsaw tool, which a lot of people lose them after a while. But since I had it handy, I'll go ahead and use that to put the top cover back on. Just like I said, there's 3 screws located on the saw. One just to the right of your trigger as you're looking at the saw, one just to the left of your trigger, and one up by the handlebar right near where the chain brake handle comes down to the casing. I'm just going to kind of snug these up. And then I'm going to go out here. I'm going to put a little bit of fuel in this thing. And hopefully I wasn't wrong. Hopefully that actually was my problem, but there could always be a chance something else could have been happening here. But anyway, let me put some fuel on it real quick, and I'm going to run it for you. Wow, I actually just spilled fuel all over the place. Not a very good cameraman. I wasn't made to be an actor. I think I was made to be a mechanic and grease monkey, and that's about it. Alright. Okay, well, it's fired. That's all I need to say. Uh-oh. It is 4 degrees here in Virginia, which is extremely weird for us. And the saw has been sitting outside all night, so I'm sure it is pretty cool. Still haven't gotten fuel up through there yet. But as you can see, instead of just sitting there idling now, it'll actually rev up. my chain brake was on. There we go. Husqvarna 350. Back in action for a $4 fuel line. I mean, save you guys some money and time. Do it yourself. No reason to pay a shop a ridiculous fee for a $4 fuel line, which I don't know how long my video took, but I'd add a minute, maybe 2 minutes to it before I started everything to however long it took me. So maybe 10 minutes at the most to repair your saw by yourself. So guys, I hope it helps. Y'all have a good one.